Hello and welcome. My name is Faye and I'm from Your Heart's Path. I come to you today from Hobart, Tasmania, the little heart-shaped island at the bottom of Australia, where I migrated with my beautiful family when I was 18 months old. I left this place when school finished, and my big initiation into my awakening hit a cataclysmic experience where I was hospitalized for a manic episode that was the initiation and the catalyst for the removal of the veils within my being that exposed to me the world beyond the non-physical. And I'd always had a sense for, but at this period of time, vision and audience, meaning being able to see energy clairvoyantly, my third eye opened, and I could also hear audiently energy, different beings, frequencies, information, again, behind the physical reality. So, whilst there was a long-term mental illness that I had been managing as a byproduct of feeling very lost and disconnected from myself, having lost myself, there were many questions that I had been asking for years that led to this experience of an accumulation of a lot of fear and the splitting off in my own psyche, getting lost within my own psyche. And there was too much information too fast in order for me to digest. It was happening at a speed and a rate that um, meant I was unable to navigate or process or felt very confused as to what to do with the information that was coming through to me at that time. And when I look back now, this was the most incredible initiation really of my life. And it cracked me wide open and started to change the language or the nature of the questions that I was asking. Who am I? Why am I here? What's this all about? It started to reconnect me with myself. And it was the path that led to a beautiful healing, a process of getting to know myself, which will forever continue to bloom whilst I'm on this spiritual path. But it gave me language, and it started to give me answers that were non-physical as to why I was experiencing the world in the way that I was, and where a lot of this confusion and inner conflict was arising in my day-to-day living, because I just wasn't satisfied with the answers that I had been given or that I was getting. I was feeling very limited. And the reason I bring that up today, just a big part to start at, is that it's a really beautiful introduction to the intuition, which we're going to explore today, as this beautiful skill set that naturally evolves and develops into receiving higher guidance as we intentionally develop our psychic abilities. And this awakening that is happening on the planet at the moment is taking us through collective initiations that are going to lead to our awakening, where we are becoming closer to the truth. Now, that doesn't always mean that initially, because we are getting closer to the truth, that we are arriving in a space of light, but it is a part of the experience necessary in order to transform our unconsciousness into something that we are very conscious of, and our experience, that is who we are in this moment. So when I look way back, when the veils, we call these veils between dimensions, think of these as doorways between different levels of existence, where the further up the column we go within our own being, the further or the higher the guidance starts to become. So, on a very base level, we all start with this intuition. It's what you have, it's what your family has, it's what your friends at the local shop have. It's basic intuition is a skill set. We actually even refer to this as something or a sensation or a feeling, or perhaps it's a whisper or a knowing right down in your gut. So, if I could say point to your intuition, you'd be moving down toward your center somewhere, often around the solar plexus, perhaps somewhere a little lower down within your belly. What we want to understand about the nature of these chakras, one, two, and three, this space around the digestive system, is that the type of information that comes from these centers is governed by the physical dimension. We don't arrive at the non-physical or start to gather information from the non-physical until we arrive at heart. And hence your heart's path. There is a gateway and a doorway that if you were training with me or if you are exploring internally, we have this initiation where the heart is cracked open. For some of you, that's through loss. For some of you, that's through grief. For some of you, that's through heartache or something big that cracks you wide open and shows you what's important here in life. It can happen through loss. This big cracking open that gives you the invitation to connect to heart, to get to connect to love, starts to connect you with a language that is both physical and non-physical in nature. But a pure intuition or the skill set of our intuition resides right down in our gut here in our base. Also, there's nothing really super special about that. There is certainly a lot of conflict internally when it comes to this voice because we've just been trained as a society or programmed to think very logically, very rationally, and to look for evidence in our physical dimension in order to validate or to prove or to make something real. And so the questions we start asking ourselves when we're exploring intuition is really what is real? And this is the great calling of the mystic. This is the great awakening of the mystic is this burning fire internally. Maybe that does start in the solar plexus there. That builds and builds and builds until there's this beautiful alchemical process where you rise up into this space of heart and you become almost, for me anyway, obsessed to move in the direction of truth. I wasn't finding that in my physical world. I wasn't finding the answers that rung true for me, that felt true for me, that sounded true for me, that expanded and felt light enough in truth for me, where movement begins to happen. And you know this in a conversation, all of you beautiful, intuitive, empathic beings. If someone tells you an untruth, you feel it in your system. It moves through your body, and you might feel it a twitch or a closing or a dimming that kind of takes place. Something just felt sort of scratchy, even if you don't have the discernment in that moment to identify what the truth actually was. You do have the skill set through that very baseline intuitive nature to realize or to feel that there is an untruth that has been told. In the same sense, we know a truth when we hear one. Truth is something that expands as we expand up our channel. So something that is true in your solar plexus might be different in your heart. Something that's true in your heart might be different in your crown. Because each one of these beautiful centers, these energy centers that we explore as we're expanding in our consciousness or that we begin to reside in, offer different perspectives, different parts of information because they govern different systems and different language and different communication internally. And so when we use these words like mystic, we're talking about an archetype, a pattern in cosmic nature in some sense that we're often contracted to experience or embody here as a human being. and we operate from that pattern or from that system, that takes us closer to a space of soul. So the mystic is very alive in me. It's also something that might tickle you, and it's just a beautiful word that starts to bring context or shape to the way that a person with a mystical nature experiences and relates to life. And so, not only is the mystic wired to move toward truth, a mystic is devoted to embodying truth, uh, experiencing and embodying authenticity, creativity as a channel or a true expression. And all through the experience and of heart, there is a non-physical. Behind the physical is the non-physical, which is closer to the truth. And there is my truth, and there is Creator's truth, and there is the higher self's truth, and there is your truth, and their truth, and there are multiple different truths, and they all vibrate differently. We are in a relationship to a constant movement and an exploration of not just developing baseline intuition, where you're trusting more instinctual guidance that's here to help you survive and navigate the physical dimension, one, two, and three. We start to move into a space where that beautiful guidance can include the non-physical reality. There's also a consideration for the whole. The moment we get to heart, we start to look and learn lessons around unconditional love. Now, don't get me wrong, just because the heart busts open and we connect to that place, it doesn't mean that, all glory resides in that space. Often there is a bit of a mess to clean up. So when I go way back to that experience where healing really began for me, there was such a mess. There was such a lot of density. I'd split off from myself in hundreds, maybe thousands of different spaces within the past, in the future too, where I had split off my energy and it was being animated in other parts outside of the present moment. Now, I say this all the time, but really understand this on another level if you can. The present moment is where your intuition speaks. So if you ever have an intuition that comes through your body or your being, it's because you are present enough to feel it, to receive it. It's a space within your being. It's not just a state of being, it's a place within you. And so as mystics, we work toward being in the present moment. This is our life's devotion, so as that we can be connected to our intuition constantly, so as that we are in relationship with truth, so as that we are working toward experiencing, anchoring, and exchanging information and light from a space of love, both physical and non-physical. Remember that space in the heart there. So going back to that experience where you might have felt that in your own awakening, where you start to have sensations and experience with the non-physical, where you start to get these nudges and you start listening. Oh, sorry, it was my dog. And you have this experience where you are cracked open and you start to become curious, but it takes action in order to generate a bit of change or to generate a little bit of momentum, so is that intuitive guidance is something that you begin to value because you recognize and realize there is movement in truth, there is spaciousness in truth. And this is taking me towards a more real experience. Remember, we asked that before, what is even real? Because when the physical plane starts to seem a little bit more like an illusion, because what's beneath the physical seems so different, there's this curiosity that starts to provide keys where questions come not only from your body, but from a higher place within your being that begins to invite you to collect yourself from the future, to collect yourself from illusion, to bring yourself back from fear, from the past, all the places where you were stuck, stagnant, or abandon yourself because of the inability to be present and digest your experience. So for me, my inability to feel what I was feeling because I was limited by my own rules and regulations that all I could see was physical, even though none of that made sense because there was different feelings and I had a different knowing and I had a sense that something else was going on behind the scenes, so to speak. It twisted my reality into absolute confusion because I thought, well, if I'm feeling all of this and I'm experiencing all of this, but this is what this person is telling me, then I am wrong. So, as intuitives, we can make our experience wrong or feel conflicted or blocked or even invisible in our own lives, powerless because we've given our power away to something that we know in our hearts isn't even really real in the first place. Now, don't get me wrong, I love the delights of this physical plane. I'm a Taurus rising. I love beautiful food and wonderful smells, and I appreciate nature. We're a part of this experience in our physical body. And I'm really passionate about grounded, practical approaches to spirituality where we integrate the non physical into the physical plane. This is where we can make great change. So, the shift and the expansion of your psychic abilities requires you not only to come back and devote yourself to the present moment where you're collecting yourself from all of these different parts outside of this now moment, it asks for you to clean up, and that's that conversation of to raise your vibration. Now, there's something we want to understand right away about the fourth dimension, the fifth dimension, when we start to go into this space where we are animating or allowing the non-physical to be in communication with us, and that is that we start to activate our astral body. And this is something that gets a little bit, there's a lot of sparkly glamour when it comes to this plane of existence. There's a lot of incongruence when it comes to the spiritual community, where you might have been seduced into entering into a spiritual path because you thought it was going to give you something, that it was going to offer you wealth or something physical in return. Often, it's the part that is lacking internally. Whilst I'm here and passionate about manifesting and creating a reality that is supportive and nourishing and healthy and whole, I'm more passionate about what is true for you. And that's an experience that unfolds as we continue to point our energy in the direction of light and love and universal law and truth, which we find within these higher chakras of our being. Yet they don't make changes in our physical reality unless they're grounded in the centers that bring that into fruition. So there's a constant learning. There's a rising and a falling up and down the column as we enter into each different doorway, into each little plane within our experience to uncover what it is that is keeping our perception stuck, stagnant, or limited only by the physical dimension. So you would have noticed that if you've had an experience that connects you really deeply to your heart, the nature of your intuition can begin to change. It might start to change from this purely instinctual level where it's looking to protect you physically, where it's more about survival, finding a partner that, is going to keep you safe and protected, where, you're wanting to belong and feel a part of your village, where it's kind of centered still around the I. the I not being a bad thing at all, but it asks for us to really build our own confidence and our own self-esteem and to begin to back ourselves on our journey because that energy that resides in your solar plexus, your beautiful light, your beautiful sun, is the part that backs you in taking action when it comes to the information that arrives from these higher centers of your being. We start to explore our clairs or our psychic abilities when we start to explore from the heart up toward the crown. So the highest sections of our being. It's just a non-physical plane. The heart is this lovely balance between physical and non-physical. It's the center of our being, but it's also the place where we start to see the truth from and experience what's behind the physical. So, this is a really important place that we continuously anchor into because of the nature of this astral body. And the astral body is like the dream world, it's like the dream plane, but there are tests and challenges inside of the astral experience because it's vibrational in nature. This is too why I chose the commitment to sobriety for somebody as sensitive as me, and that not as a weakness, it as a beautiful thing. I'm devoted to clarity within my channel. That means that the information that comes through my centers or from these higher centers or even from a cosmic space, which a lot of you mystics will be here to receive your own soul contracts and information that comes way outside of this galaxy that we want to be as clean and as clear as possible in order to receive the light, the information that need to be landed, grounded, and integrated here on Earth in order to support the greater awakening. So, in choosing sobriety, clarity of body, clarity of mind, clarity of soul, for me personally, it began to initiate me into a space where we have to be willing to deeply feel, where we have to train the mind in order to be able to create not only a nice healed environment, but a space where we can be silent. And so meditation and the other sort of sections are kind of non-negotiables. It's much like drinking water or eating beautiful food. We have to be able to take care of the physical, the mental, and emotional, and that's where our healing journey often resides. So there's a lovely combination if you're learning and you're exploring, say, the House of Mystics with me, which is my online school for empaths and intuitives to consciously expand into these higher dimensions internally, is that we have this lovely experience where healing becomes a part of the initiation and it's not something we need to be bogged down in. We open up with absolute curiosity, and it kind of goes part and part. We create this beautiful sanctuary and we move into the astral plane consciously with the protection and the clarity that we need. Part of that protection and part of that clarity is being anchored to the present moment, as we mentioned, and coming back into this space where you can locate your center within your being and begin to stay with the truth that is in front of you without fleeing. Because the astral plane is vibrational in nature, it means that your thoughts, your emotional experience, and the state of your physical body are going to have a direct effect on where you are placed vibrationally within the astral plane. Now, the astral plane, being the non-physical word behind the physical one, has a lower plane, a middle plane, and an upper plane. In order to receive higher guidance, we at least need to be in the neutral, but we want to work toward being in the higher planes of the astral so as that we can begin to perceive information outside of that space into the higher dimensions that reside even beyond there. And that's where we start to tap into clairaudience and clairvoyance and claircognizance too. And each one of these centers that governs our clairs or our psychic abilities work to be able to bring this information through with different language and different textures and different tones that each and every one of you will have a different resonance with, depending on where your soul has even come from or how it is that you best learn or perceive this information. And so the devotion to truth, the devotion to clarity, the devotion to love as our source of inspiration, but also the state of being that we want to be in when we are divinating or in communication with information that is non-physical, is vital because it brings about a light that illuminates the truth. And so a lot of our initiations, right down from that instinctive level where you're maybe perhaps confused as to whether you're experiencing anxiety or whether it's your intuition, we could say that that's quite a survival like instinctual guidance. Anxiety being something that's more of a fear of the future, an emotional response to the information that you're experiencing that is not comfortable being here in the present moment. The nature of intuition is kind of calm, it's quite soft, it's quite quiet, and it's not fear-based. It provides enough information that you can take a little step of action and change or shift your vibration a little closer toward the truth. Even if that be a difficult one to swallow, it teaches us to digest accurately the speed of information at a pace and a rate that can begin to make change in your life and simultaneously affect the life around you. But when we're working vibrationally, we're not looking to change our external environment in order to transform our inner one. We're devoted as mystics to transforming our inner worlds in order to have an effect on our outer world. And so, as the guidance system begins to change, just like that sort of more instinctual part that helps you keep your physical being in check, it doesn't mean that that information disappears. I had some intuitive guidance a couple of weeks ago just to give gluten a break for a little bit. I had some aches and pains in some of my joints, and I had a couple of little ulcers come up in my mouth. And I could go read on Google, but I didn't. I checked in with one of my guides who's really good with herbs and the body, and we had a conversation. They said, "Hey, just try this for a bit. I know you love your sourdough bread, but let's just have a break for a few weeks and see if these symptoms begin um, to lessen." And so I listened. I trust that guidance, and that was for a physical reason. But as we sort of start to go up the column, and we're in this space where we're growing in our confidence and our self-esteem because we're building the love toward ourselves. We're valuing ourselves enough that we want to take care of our mental health and stay devoted to a regular practice. We start to generate enough energy that we have some available because we are here in the real moment, in the present, to begin to expand into some of these higher places. And so it's sort of like sometimes I see this like a tree. I don't think that that's anything, hugely mystical or magical. I feel like the tree of life and things have been used since the beginning of time, and our intuition as a symbol could be placed in something as simple. We need to be deeply rooted and grounded in one, two, and three, our centers that govern the physical reality. And then the trunk is sort of like this space where we're building second and third. We want this really strong, solid foundation. So it's that when we get to the heart and the branches start to spread in all different directions, that we have enough stability beneath to be able to hold and anchor that light, but also to be strong enough that we can surrender to that information because it functions at a very different speed. The speed of that information is our ability. How quickly can we process that guidance? How quickly can you take action? How quickly will you follow that inspiration? It's also what's between you and the guidance. So, what we do when we're developing our psychic abilities is we get super practiced at creating the accurate state of being meaning where you are in that astral plane, lower to middle to higher, that you can stay there long enough in that space to be able to accept that sometimes within that space, what is revealed as the illumination begins to take place is that our own interferences, blocks, fears, densities will reveal themselves to us. And instead of needing to take a couple of weeks off in order to connect with that space, instantly we start to apply the tools to create clarity. So we're working more from this observer's perspective. We're illuminating the truth of what's potentially affecting our filters by noticing our own internal densities. But when we start to work with this in regards to providing guidance for other or applying our psychic abilities to our practice or our relationships or to life, is that we need to be able to be radically honest with ourselves, but also radically honest with other people and the way that we are perceiving the world. So, in a world that is very materialistic, and that not is a bad thing, in a world that is very materialistic, we're very easily manipulated, we're very easily controlled. I could get your attention by introducing something. We're all kind of have our weaknesses there. Anything that grabs your attention, that takes you out of the present moment as a means of distraction, so as that you're not here with the truth, or that has power over you to take your attention elsewhere, is what we begin to address in this center here. So the exploration of the psychic abilities is strengthening is a deep understanding to what is the intuition and what's the nature of it and how does it work in my body and my being and what type of guidance is coming through for me and what blocks and barriers do I need to release in order to give myself this opportunity to trust this instinctively in the beginning, but also to begin to cultivate enough energy internally that I can build this momentum and start to operate from higher states within my being that are no longer bound by the rules or the laws that govern these lower dimensions. Doesn't mean they're bad, but the awakening is the connection of all. It's the wholeness of our physical and our non-physical nature. Now, a mystic in this space, when we're connected to heart, learns to, or is on an apprenticeship here on earth, if you will, to work with the power of love. The power of love is something that can instantly heal, that transforms, that opens, that unites us as a whole. And so, in a place where we're experiencing a lot of conflict, where there is war, where there are patterns and deep healing that needs to take place within humanity, within the psyche or the soul of each individual, that love is not just a bypass, it's a vibration and it's an energy that has the ability to transform these densities, which is why, as mystics, it's so vital and important we surrender our ego, third chakra, physical dimension, afraid of the future, comfortable with the known, that we can surrender this out of the way and begin to receive and then generate a light that is inclusive of love, that has information that will act as guidance and inspiration, ideas, and frequencies that can transform and illuminate and heal this darkness and this unconsciousness and the illusions and the fears that humanity have been entrapped in. And this is the importance and the awakening of the mystic right now. Whilst it sounds like something fantastical or of a fantasy nature, it's very real. Mystics have always been alive. They've always been anchors for visions of a future. We have always been receptive to receiving these higher frequencies and passing on messages to those ready to hear the truth, because truth awakens us, truth expands us, truth moves us. And movement and change and the expansion and the embodiment of love and light and these frequencies is part of our mission here. It's part of what we've accepted from soul. This is the body, mind, soul connection. And so many of you are here on a mission, and your mission is to fulfill these contracts that have come from soul. And regardless of whether you do it in this lifetime or you come back to do it time and time again, we're all responsible for what is taking place in this world right now. And our inner world, our inner state of being, our own inner conflicts, our own inner battles, our own inner disturbance is what we must address. And once we're able to address that, once we have the tools, we chip away at that constantly. We don't just have this awakening that is then, I can see it all. It's a constant tending to, like a garden, and we pull out the weeds and we regularly mow the lawn and we can plant beautiful things and we share the vegetables when they're, in abundance. But it's something that constantly needs tending to. Our vibration is really important there. And so, this clarity of being mentally, emotionally, physically, and of spirit is the devotion that allows for the speed in which you process information or light to begin to take place within your being. And that's where really beautiful guidance comes from, because we're able to surrender our ego out of the way enough that we can accept the truth that is coming through from a higher plane and start to take the information or to receive the vision or to respond to this information from a space of love and openness and trust. And so, of course, we bump up against resistance, but we learn to surrender that. We learn to surrender our resistance to the light whilst we apply these beautiful tools that are sometimes necessary of protection, and of devoting to a space of clarity, of sobriety. The reason I bring about this is because addiction is often something that, I've heard people say things like, well, I like to drink because it's the fun that I have, whereas I would be much more inclined to inspire you to find what brings you fun from a natural state of being that didn't affect or inflame your body, or that you, in some sense, needed to numb in order to experience. Is it even real? Is it even true? If you can't access it from a space of from clarity. I know when I stopped drinking, I lost friends, and I held on to some of them for a while. Some of them are still in my life, even if they do drink alcohol. But our relationship is very different. What we bond over is very different. And actually, a lot of those relationships, when I look at them in this moment, are often one way. So the person leaning in for guidance or for support, or and I'm much more mindful now as to who and how I spend my time and my energy in that sense too. But all from a space of compassion, it's not about right or wrong or good or bad. But when we can make a commitment like that or devote to a channel that has clarity for the nature of the higher realities to start to ground within your body and your being, it's where we get closer to these soul contracts, where we can speed up our experience and begin to be of service, because we're sort of service to the I or to the ego or to the physical reality up until a point where we transcend that experience and we can begin looking at contribution. We can begin to look beyond ourselves and start to have a look at where can these beautiful psychic abilities, where I'm seeing deeper into the truth, where can I contribute that? How can I bring that through my body and my being and plant it and ground it here into reality? I had this lovely question come through this morning from a dear friend of mine, and she asked me if I knew anyone that had information about starseeds. She was curious about that, and I pondered it for a little while and nothing really sprung into my awareness. But I was watching these little seeds, like if we use this landscape of the garden and we imagine these cosmic beings that have come from higher dimensions and worlds where there is peace and love and art and kindness and healing and a connection to divinity, an embodiment of divinity where there is no duality. These places exist. It makes sense to me as to why humanity would have called for help up until this point, and why beings of a higher nature would be seeding here on earth at this time to bring to life their true nature, or the true nature that the earth is aching for, is needing in order to actually survive. We could be that honest if we wanted to. So the starseed part, whilst the soul might have had multiple different lives, carries with it information, and that information often comes from the soul. And so we need to be operating on that level where we're connecting and accessing that soul star chakra that's right above the crown chakra, where information is able to come through the channel. And if we block that, if we're here and we're too afraid to lean into soul, to trust this information, to take that risk, or we lack the tools and the resources to even settle anxiety or stress or fear or overcome sickness, illness, disease, or we cannot learn the lessons that are being presented to us because of a lack of resources internally, then we go round and round in circles and we're not doing the earth or ourselves a justice because those soul contracts remain untapped. It's always a feeling you will have on an instinctual level. You'll have a calling. You'll have a calling that says lean in. You'll have a calling that says this is just not right. I'm just not satisfied with this. Why do I have to work like this? It's something will be there. There will be a feeling within the body, even if you don't have your why or the vision yet or the sounds yet, or there will be some kind of data because it's at the very core of your being, just like the beautiful seed. And so I wonder with the star seeds, just in this conversation as I'm in communication, we're sharing some information with you on the importance of your mission and what it is that you've come here to do, and that it's time that we start to take the nature of our intuition very seriously, because the answers to the problems we are experiencing do not reside in the physical plane. We have to understand the nature of the physical reality, and even time as a sense of illusion that is the last thing to manifest behind all of the information that is non-physical that has come before. So if we're seeing wars and we're seeing destruction, we're seeing sickness, we're seeing illness, we're seeing disease and hatred and disconnect and addiction and obesity and all of these other things that are disconnecting us from our nature, our internal nature, and our ability to exist together as one, then we need to have a look and see what kind of energetics are playing on within this reality. And the truth is that whilst there are dimensions overlapping planet Earth that feel much more like heaven, and there are these beautiful pockets of absolute beauty here on Earth, the vibration of this planet is quite dense. And for a lot of you, if you resonate with being highly intuitive, extremely sensitive, um, as a mystic, as a seer, as an artist, as a visionary, as whatever word, a psychic, a medium, a channeler, whatever that word is for you, if you feel the aliveness of that experience inside of you, you're going to be super aware of the density in this world because you are wired to perceive and move toward truth. So if you're in a position where you're being guided toward your soul's mission, but there is something big in the way, That bigness is something that you cannot run away from. The only way to get away from it is to disconnect from your body and being and stop feeling and stop thinking and stop experiencing the world right down to that physical plane, which is why a lot of mystics, intuitive, sensitive beings become addicted to pleasure, become addicted to numbing the experience and vacating the present moment in order to function. But what we want to understand is that that is an illusion. There is no functioning. There is nothing real about being outside of this current moment. There's nothing wrong with you. It's just we don't have the resources or the understanding or the eye to see where am I truly and why is it that I keep leaving my body. The questions need to begin to change, and that starts to redirect our energy into a place that brings about movement and transformation, opportunity. And so, if you feel this aliveness inside of you and you're still stuck in that space where you're feeling, is this anxiety, is this intuition? I don't know if I should go in that direction or this direction. There's an inner conflict. There is a battle. There is a duality internally where you might not be connecting to the right place within your being, or there is a misunderstanding of the nature of intuition. And intuition requires action if we're to ground it here in our physical reality, and we need to work to move the blocks between being able to trust ourselves enough that we can take that step and begin to experience the change. When we're in a rhythm with that, as said before, the guidance starts to move from instinctual because you know that you're always going to be okay. You've understood and learnt those lessons that come from 1, 2, and 3, or as they surface, you are willing to address them. Spirit know this. They begin to ascend you up your column. You begin to move into different areas of your being that gives you higher information that requires an even deeper sense of trust, you see. So you've got to trust this on a baseline level to begin to take bigger risks, to be able to take bigger leaps, and to be able to do this at a speed where you're not really even thinking about it. This also opens us up to the nature of a non-physical reality where we have guidance and when we have support. And this is where a lot of people too get stuck. So you might have expanded your intuition to that place from instinctual guidance to a place that feels more heartfelt, a little bit more in that space where you're responding to life in a way where you're feeling really grounded and very present, but there is fear in expanding further, or there is a lesson or a learning that keeps coming in, and this same initiation is repeating itself over and over, and you're wanting to get to the other side, but you don't know how. Sometimes we need a sense to come online in order to provide a vision or that information, or perhaps there's a gatekeeper or a contract or a soul fragment, or there is something that is just outside of our awareness that we need in order to bring that step within our ladder so that we can ascend into that place that then provides that next layer of information. So this is where I come in. Now, this isn't a conversation as a sales pitch. It's just a space to let you know that you have absolute control over the state of being and your progression in the expansion of your psychic abilities that are here to move you and all of us in the direction of truth, which is why I'm having this conversation with you today. There's no more time to waste. And whilst time in some sense is a bit of an illusion, we're moving on a path right now that, without bringing fear into this space, is bringing about experiences of eruption. And whilst there is a purging that takes place, and I saw this yesterday like a volcano, we want this lava, this larvae, to form hard or firm, different and new structures that give us a higher view so as that we can start to course correct and do things differently. It's an absolute illusion that we are only within a physical reality, and it's time to wake up to the truth. I say this from a space because if you're someone that is hiding away, that is tucked away in the woods and is too sensitive to the world, and you can't function, and you have a dream of XYZ and you can't possibly do that because you're too anxious, or you're struggling with an addiction, or you're obsessed with this, or you're distracted by this, or so and so has a hold of your power. We've got to put down the excuses. It is a time to lean in. I run the school called the House of Mystics that was a gift to me. And it was a gift to me because there was a relationship built. And I hope you feel this in your heart as I'm not stroking my ego. I built a relationship through devotion with these non-physical beings that come from a higher dimension that have entrusted me with this information. And it is a reality that exists within the astral plane that in joining, I will take you through. This will teach you how to connect to and create these states of being, take responsibility for your vibration, so as that no matter what you wake up to, you have the ability to come back to that place of love and centeredness, that you've got the tools to clean up if you need, that you have the clarity to do it instantly if that's what's being required of you, and that in the process, the floodgates open. This guidance comes in and this light starts to move through your body where new pathways open internally, and you as an individual being have access to a higher dimension that planet Earth needs for its awakening. So I want to teach you. I want to teach you what I know. I want to teach you what these beautiful beings have shared with me that have allowed for me. I really do feel more than any other period in my life, I am right in the center of my purpose here, and these contracts are coming through, and I'm absolutely devoted to serving them. Now that doesn't mean that I don't make mistakes or that I have hard days, but I do feel equipped and supported to move through anything. And our initiations are here to awaken us. So if you're blocked and you're stuck, the House of Mystics is something that can help guide you through these thresholds, because there are malevolent beings, there are dark energies. It's something that exists inside of us until we address it. Otherwise, we would be fully awakened. So we need to learn how to transform, to release, how to stay present in moments of adversity. And that means not losing center even when we're challenged. I want to teach you these things. And the House of Mystics is an online school. It's open for anybody in the world that is able to speak English at this time. Perhaps one day it will be translated. It's all women. This is the last all women's group. If you're listening to this in the future, I'm sure that after from 2025 onwards or 2026 onwards, men will be included in this space. And this is a school of awakening. Initially, the seed was planted for psychic and development, but this is becoming inclusive in the devotion to awakening. It feels more inclusive for those willing to be in accurate communication with energy, that are willing to see the truth, that are willing to embody the truth and serve your own individual soul contracts for the highest good of all. And all those things sound like a la-di-da until you really feel them in your system. And if it is flying over your head as these words come out of my heart toward you as a gift and as an offering, have a look and see what's in the way. And what comes up in your mind? What are the excuses? What's the feeling and the sensation? Where do you have not enoughness? Where is it within your being that is blocking your connection to your heart, that is blocking your connection to clarity? And what are you going to do about it? Because action is required at this time. I want to see this earth move into a space where we can unite with one another, where we recognize the truth that I am you and you are me and we are one. And unconditional love is required. Unconditional love for yourself, for other, for your brothers, for your sister, for your neighbor, for the random person on the street, for the person who has done wrong, for the person who has contributed to war. We need to get to a space where we have an understanding that these programs, these conditions, and these patterns have been taught to this person. Perhaps they've been hijacked. And what are we going to do about it? Because if we're just going to battle, if we're here to fight, because we want to be right, it's all we're doing is feeding duality. So how do we rise above to that higher perspective, which is there in the soul, which means we have to learn these lessons. And let's not, it's about learning these lessons whilst creating minimal damage as possible and starting to implement this beautiful wisdom that you have inside of you into a world that is desperate, in desperate need of truth, of love, of light, of new resources and information, so as that we can unite. come into health, come into to abundance in wealth and wholeness, not money, wealth, wealth in resources, wealth in energy, in vitality. Um, and this is what I'm passionate about. I wanted to talk to you about this today because I want you to feel the nature of how grounded spirituality can be. How it's not about am I on a spiritual journey or am I not? It's about whether or not I'm seeing it through that lens within my being or not. They're just different perspectives within your system. And the higher up your column, the closer you get to the truth. And that's something as mystics we are devoted to. I feel like I would like to end this transmission today. If you would like to join me in the House of Mystics, there are enrollments happening until partway through September. It's 2025, and we are in the very end of July going into August. So we've got about 6 or 7 weeks left of enrollments here. I will be closing the doors once the spots fill. And the course goes for 4 months. And this is where I'll be teaching you all of the tools and the resources, the information and the wisdom, the practices and the lessons and bridging the connection between you and the non-physical beings that are here to continue to guide you into the future of your reality so that you can fulfill your soul's mission here and awaken, awaken, awaken. The 4 month journey is all done online. Each class goes up to about 2 hours. There's 1 or 2 classes a week. It's up to about 25 classes within the 4 months. There's some pre-recorded pieces there on the platform, and you'll have this access for an entire year to all of the resources that we explore together. So I record each class. If you can't make the lives, it's uploaded onto the platform. You can revisit it that way. Students have come back and re-practice things from a higher perspective and had a whole nother experience as they're getting closer and closer to a truth. But huge breakthroughs can take place in this space. It's a responsibility that is necessary. Um, with that support and the protection that is implemented into your field, not just through information, but in the getting to know yourself. Self-awareness and self-knowledge, self-confidence and self-esteem are some of the most important pieces when it comes to protection, to knowing who you are, to knowing your vibration so deeply that, what do we say, the subtle reflection of somebody else's essence on your sensing body is brought to your attention instantly. And we have to know relational energy. And so this is something I'll introduce you to too. By the end of the course, you'll be able to do a mini reading, read somebody else's energy and pass on some guidance so that we can offer some transformation there if that's what is wanted, or it's just something that will deepen your relationship to life through your own relationships, or an alternative practice being that might not be through guidance. This can be through healing, this can be through teaching, this can be through anything really. It's about bringing more truth into your life. Thank you for being here with me today. Our journey on Spotify has only just started. So if you are just listening to the audio, I'd love you to give me a follow along. If there's an option to rate the podcast as of now, please give this a little like. I'd love you to share it with a friend or two. My intention is for expansion. I want to continue to offer more light, more wisdom, and help awaken the mystic inside of all of you who cross my path. So pass this on to a beautiful empathic friend you think that this might benefit. And until then, follow the subtle nudges and take action on that beautiful intuition and that information. It'll give you the momentum that you need in order to really begin to commit to the importance of your mission. Okay, thanks again. I look forward to seeing you next time. Have a wonderful rest of your day.